I'm joined by Dr. Dave Topa of Pittsford Pediatric Associates and a proud parent of graduating McQuaid Senior. Thank you so much, Dr. Topa, for taking the time to join me just to chat a little bit about the ongoing rollout of vaccines, especially now that at least the Pfizer vaccine is available for children as young as 12, which includes the vast majority of our student body here at McQuaid. I guess my first question is, anecdotally, statistically, we've seen that COVID tends to produce less severe symptoms in younger children, including teenagers. There still can be severe cases, but on average, they're not that bad. And one might argue, given that fact, the vaccine is not as urgent for this age group. What do you think about that line of argument?
So while generally younger individuals have escaped a lot of the more significant effects of COVID infection, we are seeing more and more young people get infected with COVID, and I expect those numbers will actually rise. What we have found is that if we compare the data to 2019 data right now, that the number of individuals under the age of 18 who died from COVID is actually higher than what you would see with diabetes, with congenital defects as well. And so it's really moving up into the top 10, almost the top 5 in terms of causes of death amongst young people. So the risk is there. I agree. It doesn't seem huge to every single person, but I like to use the analogy of a thunderstorm, right? So say you see a thunderstorm on the horizon, what do? We all go in and get indoors, right? Because we don't want to get struck by lightning. And how many of us really know someone who's been struck by lightning, right? So probably not many of us, but yeah, not many of us go running out in the thunderstorm, waving a golf club over our head, tempting fate. And it's the similar type situation here, where how much do we really want to tempt fate? And so we also are seeing a number of young people get admitted to the hospital with COVID as well. We're up to about 13,000 plus so far, and some of these kids can get really sick. And so, I don't like to try to scare people, but again, the severity of the illness can be significant, more so than influenza. And also the reason not to get it is just because it can be a pretty lousy illness as well. For some folks, it's just a couple of days, but for a number, it's 10 days, 14 days of feeling tired, fatigued, not be able to smell or taste, which, as we all know, growing young men like to eat. And it's not as much fun to eat if you can't smell or taste anything, that's for sure. And it also requires missing a significant amount of school practice time, because if you get COVID, not only do you miss the 10 days while you're sick so you don't spread it to someone else, there is also a return to play protocol, because we do know that the virus itself can affect the heart muscle. And so it's not like you can come back from day 10 and hop right into your activities. There's about 6-day to 7-day process or protocol by which students would come back gradually in terms of and then return to the athletic activities. So it can really take a big chunk out of the season, out of practice and preparation as well, and also affect your teammates as well.
And certainly, I know a lot of our young men will participate in summer leagues and travel programs and various sports. So the same return to play protocol would be in place for them, even though they're outside of the school, outside the school year. Was going to ask you about the emerging research about the longer term effects of COVID. I see from time to time reports and studies now that we're 14 months into this pandemic and have the data to look at. You mentioned the potential for an impact on the heart. Are there any other long-term impacts that you are seeing in the research?
So the data is still being assembled about long-term effects of COVID. A lot of, I think, what we worry about is extrapolated down from the adult literature, where a significant number of adults who get COVID can have long-lasting effects, whether it's fatigue, whether there's some brain fog where it's hard to concentrate, and whether or not there is true reduction in cardiac muscle contractibility and durability. Basically, that's that's definitely a possibility. But as of right now, we're not quite sure what the long-term effects can be in kids. So again, uh, try not to tempt fate. It does make sense to avoid an infection if we can.
I've heard it voiced both here around school and in the wider community that folks understand that the vaccine is effective and safe, and they understand that COVID is a disease that carries a lot of risks. But they're gonna wait. They're gonna kind of watch to see how this plays out, and it's all happening maybe a little too fast. What would you say to that line of reasoning?
I mean, I definitely understand the sentiment. I myself don't really like to buy the first model year of anything. And so I can definitely understand that sentiment of wanting to go slow, see how things play out. But I would like to reassure families and students that the technology isn't brand spanking new that goes into this vaccine, especially the Pfizer one that's approved for down to age 12. The first reports of use of mRNA technology goes back to the early 90s, and it just has not been incorporated in a large scale until about the last decade or so, when it's been used in research on vaccines into HIV, Ebola, Zika, and even influenza. And so this is the mRNA technology is ready for prime time. And typically when you see a vaccine is developed, it is drawn out over a long period of time. One of the main reasons for that is that vaccine companies are hesitant to try to push the process along and invest a lot of money into something that may not work in the end. Okay. And what the government did in developing these COVID vaccines is said to the companies, hey, we're going to basically subsidize your R&D, your research and development, and really give you money to get your manufacturing lines up and ready to go, so that if the vaccines prove to be effective, then we can get started right away. So it really took away a risk barrier, financial risk barrier for the vaccine companies, and allowed them to really prepare to manufacture vaccine as quickly as possible, pending the results of studies that show that it's safe. Now, the studies were also were really ramped up quickly, but in a way that didn't cut corners. They were able to ensure that they had adequate patients study size, meaning for the Pfizer, upwards of 30 to 40,000 individuals participated in those studies nationwide. And then and they were able to show that the vaccines were, number one, effective, and number two, safe. And historically, if you look back at vaccines, almost all side effects that you see from vaccines occur within 6 to 8 weeks. And so there haven't been any significant long-standing side effects or long-term effects that were deleterious amongst vaccines and previous vaccines. So we've got a long history of vaccination in this country that has proven that they've been safe. And so once they were able to show quality data over more than 8 weeks, everyone started to feel better. And now we are many, many, many months out from those first rounds of vaccine study and administration. And it appears that they continue to have a good track record of safety, especially in comparison to the risks that accompany COVID.
On that topic of side effects, it's certainly good to hear that the medium to longer term periods seem not to have any serious side effects. What are you seeing in terms of short term, particularly with younger people? Are they experiencing side effects, and what seem to be the common ones?
It's very similar to what we see in the adults. We are seeing some soreness at the site of the shot. To be honest with you, I get a lot of reports that the shot itself doesn't hurt nearly as much as your flu vaccine or your tetanus boosters, the meningitis vaccine, the HPV vaccine that your students are familiar with and have gotten recently. Rather, it's a fairly painless shot itself, and then you can have some arm tenderness for the next couple of days. Fever in the first 24 hours has been reported.
Mhm.
is fairly common, and then some aches and pains. And so someone who receives the vaccine may not feel good for a day or two afterwards, but compared to what the risk would be with actually getting COVID, it's reasonable. And so, and a lot of individuals who get the vaccine have no side effects.
Right.
It's important to keep that in mind.
I can certainly say just for myself that um, the shot itself was really very simple. I mean, not just a little pinch. Certainly, I've had more painful vaccines in the past, and yeah, just the sore arm, which hangs around for maybe 36 hours. So
Right.
definitely manageable. So right now, the only vaccine of the three currently authorized for use in the United States available for people as young as 12 is the Pfizer. Do we expect the other vaccines to potentially be authorized for use in the younger ages? And if so, are there any differences that families should be aware of?
So the Moderna uses the same technology, the mRNA technology that we've seen with the Pfizer vaccine. So I would not expect significant differences in terms of either safety or efficacy. And then in terms of the Johnson and Johnson vaccine, we'll see. I've not heard anything specific about a target date for when they would appeal for approval down to younger ages.
Well, Dr. Topa, I really appreciate your time sharing your insights and experiences as we continue to navigate what's hopefully the closing chapters of this pandemic. And I think certainly the vaccine effort is a critical part of bringing closure. We're taping this on Tuesday, May 18th. And as I announced to our community yesterday, we're pleased to be partnering with Monroe County to host a Pfizer vaccine clinic, first dose on Monday, May 24th, with the follow-up second dose on Monday, June 14th, excuse me. And I checked this afternoon and appointments are still available. So certainly encourage the McQuaid community, and really it's open to anyone in the larger local community. If you haven't gotten your shot yet and you're eligible, make an appointment to come here to 1800 South Clinton. And the good folks from Monroe County will take care of you. So again, Dr. Topa, thank you again. Good luck. Thank you for all of your work, just working with your patients throughout this pandemic. I'm sure there are plenty of other routine, pediatric concerns in addition to COVID that you were juggling, and certainly our healthcare workers deserve tremendous gratitude for their efforts the past few months.
Yeah, you're very welcome, and thanks to McQuaid for giving their students and families an opportunity to get protected. It's a really important public health issue here, and I'm glad that you guys are taking the lead. And hopefully, we can move away from the pandemic as quickly as possible.
Amen. Thank you again.
You're welcome.